that, when I was in college or when I was in high school. And same here. We had one of those too when I was in high school. And the one that I had was black and Steve's is chrome. So Steve has kind of an upgraded version. But I remember in football in high school, that was the workout, is that you use the multi-station universal and you would start at a station like the bench press and you would just pick a weight that you could do and you would go until they blew the whistle and then you would rotate. And I mean, for teenagers who are eating enough and getting enough rest, you're probably going to get some growth out of that. I remember it was very impressive seeing guys being able to bench press the whole stack. Um, anyway, so I have that universal that belonged to Steve. It went to Joe Vitale, and then I got it from Joe Vitale, and it is a big secret and a big surprise because I will be doing all kind of stuff on that Universal and sharing as much as I know about how Steve used it and some of the little workouts that he did. One of the things is that George Helmer talked about Steve was working on a animal trainer for his shoulders because he injured his shoulders in one of his movies and he invented, along with the help of a doctor and an engineer, the animal trainer, which I also have. And so I remember George talking about during the days of the Steve Reeves newsletter that Steve was actually working on a workout utilizing those two things, the animal trainer for shoulders and then the universal. I don't know. I guess it never got finished, but I'll keep digging and see if I can't figure it out. And then I had a gentleman, Stephen, contact me on my Instagram recently. Stephen DeMarco. I'm just going off my memory here. And Stephen had very smartly pointed out that he was wondering about the images of Steve and how over time those images, uh, Steve DeMarco from Australia, those images are continuing to get passed around online because, people are making Instagram accounts and using images of Steve and Clancy Ross and Larry Scott and on and on and on. And over time, those images are starting to get degraded. And so Stephen had a good point. He said someone should catalog all of the original photos of Steve, the great shots that were taken by Tony Lanza and Russ and um, and Russ Warner, and should catalog those to protect them. And that sounds like a really good idea. I don't have the time to do that. Maybe somebody watching. Along the lines of those pictures, though, I mean, I know a lot of people out there have a lot of the magazines in which those classic pictures are in. So, as long, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as long as those magazines are well taken care of, and I have a lot too, then the photos should be preserved. Now, these are obviously copies of the originals, but they're only second or third, away from the originals. I also have some originals, and I am taking care of those. I think it's a great idea. I'm not going to do it, but I do pledge to take care of the Steve Reeves, collectibles, personal belongings that I do have, like what you're seeing here behind me. And by the way, here is the wall. So when Steve was 16 years old, he started bodybuilding. I've heard different ages, 15, 17, go with 16. And he learned how to lift weights from a neighbor named Joe. And Joe charged Steve, I don't remember how much per weight training session. Well, after so many bodybuilding sessions of Steve training with Joe at Joe's house in Joe's garage, Steve said, okay, I think I got it. So he set up his own gym in his garage at his house in Oakland, and he wrote down his first workout here in crayon. And so what we have right here is history. It's kind of like, digging up treasure, the Holy Grail, as it's been called. And there have been a few magazine articles done on the wall. And, without George Helmer, because he's the guy that did all the research, and, I'm sure there's a video on my YouTube channel of that. George Helmer on his stevereeves.com website has an article on that. It's pretty mind blowing, all of the work that went into getting this 2 by 2.5 by 1.5 piece of garage wall that was in the house in Oakland. Um, I just saw a study recently on art, and in the study, they had researched people who actually saw the originals, like a Mona Lisa and so on and so forth. And so there's a bigger flood of chemicals, there's a bigger trigger in your brain when you actually see the original versus a replica. Because I've been asked to do replicas of the wall, like maybe a poster, and it's just at this point in time, it's just not really something that interests me. Um, Especially when I have the real thing. But I can attest to that. I think there's something, uh, it's much more profound, and it really lights up the brain when you see an original, whether it's a Renoir, whether it's a baseball that was actually signed by Babe Ruth, or a football jersey that was signed by you know Crazy Legs Johnson, Crazy Legs Hirsch, or if it's the wall, because you think about the material inside of this frame, and you think about a Steve Reeves 16-year-old, and at that time he was going to Castlemont High School, and you think about what was going on in his life. Um, his mom Goldie, of course, was always there for him. He had a paper route at that time, and that's how they say he built up his calves. And he had a stepfather who, made fun of him for working out and for doing bodybuilding. And did Steve have a girlfriend at the time? And what who were his friends and what were his aspirations? So you think about the real thing, and there's energy there. There's energy in that wall. So it's just a really, as a hardcore bodybuilding fan, as a competitor myself a long time ago, and as someone who still considers himself to be a bodybuilder at the core of my existence, um, it's just magical, to have something like that. And you think about the greatest bodybuilder who ever lived, and that was the humble beginnings of his bodybuilding career. Anyway, Steve DeMarco. So yeah, that is a good idea, and maybe somebody will latch onto that. I've been also having a lot of communications. I'm skipping over to Instagram now, from Dave Dupree. And Dave, if you're watching this, I think you are an amazing person. You have an amazing story with your bodybuilding career, and I know that you, weren't really in that circle, the Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Frank Zane, those guys. Dave told me that even though he was in the Pumping Iron movie, he told the producers to remove him from all of it. He didn't want to have anything to do with it because Dave is anti-steroids. And, I love that he sticks to his guns. But Dave, I can't figure you out, because some days you seem like you love Steve, and then other days it seems like you don't love Steve. Um, I'm here to support you. If you have a story to tell, I'd love to hear it. I know you talked about you were writing a book, and I think that would be an awesome endeavor. But it's important, Dave, that you share your story because there are a lot of us out there that want to hear it from the horse's mouth. And because, we all pass on, and when the time comes, whether it's me or you or whomever, it's important that the next generation hears that story from the horse's mouth. So say what you have to say, and I think it'll make you feel better if you do it to a broad audience. So whether you have a YouTube channel yourself, whether you have somebody out there that you like in the bodybuilding world interview you, I would be happy to do it. Doesn't have to be me. Whether you write a book, if you need somebody to help you get that book out, then that's fine too. But you know, get going. Let's stop beating around the bush and let's hear your story. And that way then we'll be done with it. But once again, I don't want you to take this the wrong way because this all comes from love. I'll say it. I'm as a fellow bodybuilder. That may sound funny to you, but it feels pretty good for me to say that. So I'd love to hear your story. Um, Nibra Radi, for me, Steve Reeves isn't only the greatest Hercules of all time, but he's also the godfather of bodybuilding. That's on my YouTube channel. I never tire of watching and admiring Steve Reeves' classic, beautiful physique all day, every day. That's Kevin Falcoa. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And it goes on and on and on. You will find people in the comments on my YouTube channel who either they knew Steve or their mom or their uncle or their friend or someone knew Steve. So you can find some real nuggets sometimes in the comments and, take it for whatever it's worth. I don't know why somebody would go on there and lie about meeting Steve once. It doesn't really make any sense that somebody would do that. And, we all just want to continue hearing the stories and sharing the stories. Anyway, this is a test video. I just wanted to get a setup in here and start making more videos, just casual stuff. I do plan on interviewing some people, and thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Take care.